In Arizona, not all felonies are created equal, but they all carry the power to ruin your life. Some carry the death penalty. Some sound minor, but stick with you forever. I'm going to walk you through what these felony classes really mean and why misunderstanding them could cost you everything. I've handled hundreds of criminal cases across every felony class, and what people think the charge means versus what it actually means for their life is often miles apart. In Arizona, felony charges come in 6 classes, and I'm going to walk you through what each one of those classes means, what kinds of crimes fall into them, and most importantly, what's at stake if you're facing one. Because the reality is this, a felony charge doesn't just threaten your freedom, it threatens your future. So let's get into it. In Arizona, a felony is a criminal offense that's more serious than a misdemeanor. Felonies can result in time in prison, not jail. And even after you've served your time, the consequences don't end there. We're talking about losing your right to vote, losing your right to possess a firearm, losing eligibility for certain jobs and professional licenses, and living with a conviction that stays on your record for a very long time, if not forever. So how are felonies categorized? Let's take a look. Arizona divides felonies into 6 classes. First, there's Class 1. Class 1 felonies represent the most serious category of crime under Arizona law, consisting exclusively of 2 offenses: first-degree murder and second-degree murder. First-degree murder includes 3 types: premeditated murder, felony murder, and the murder of a law enforcement officer. Premeditation means the killing was planned or deliberately considered beforehand, though this planning can happen quickly. Felony murder occurs when a death happens during or as a result of the commission of certain felonies, such as robbery, kidnapping, sexual assault, burglary, arson, or drug offenses, regardless of the intent to kill. Conviction for first-degree murder can result in life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years if the victim was 15 years or older, or after 35 years if the victim was under 15. Or it could also result in natural life imprisonment, which means life without parole, which allows no early release except by gubernatorial pardon, or the death penalty, which is reserved solely for first-degree murder cases involving proven aggravating factors. Then there's second-degree murder. Second-degree murder is an intentional killing without premeditation, or an act done with extreme indifference to human life. It carries severe penalties, but does not involve the death penalty. Sentencing for second-degree murder depends on prior convictions. For first-time offenders, the sentences can range from 10 to 25 years in prison, with a presumptive sentence of 16 years. For defendants with prior second-degree murder convictions or certain dangerous felonies, the sentencing range goes from 15 to 29 years, with a presumptive sentence of 20 years. Both first and second-degree murder charges are charged as Class 1 felonies and carry no statute of limitations, meaning that criminal charges can be filed at any time following the crime. Cases involving Class 1 felonies, especially first-degree murder, entail heightened legal procedures, including capital qualified defense attorneys and intense scrutiny due to the severity and potential punishment of life imprisonment or death. These charges fundamentally alter legal strategy and stakes, requiring rigorous defense at every stage, from challenging the prosecution's evidence on motive, intent, causation, and witness reliability to contesting investigative procedures. The presumption of guilt is strong once charged, demanding substantial effort to restore the presumption of innocence. Then there's Class 2 felonies. Class 2 felonies are the second most serious category of crime in Arizona, just below Class 1 felonies that involve murder. These offenses are considered very serious because they often involve substantial harm, danger, or risk to public safety. Common Class 2 felonies include attempted murder, which could be either first or second-degree murder, manslaughter, which is reckless or intentional killing without premeditation, kidnapping, especially with violence or refusal to release a victim safely, sexual exploitation of a minor, armed robbery, sexual assault, dangerous drug offenses such as the manufacturing or trafficking of deadly narcotics, drive-by shootings, arson of occupied buildings, terrorism-related offenses, certain high-level theft and money laundering crimes. As you can see, a whole gamut. Sentencing for Class 2 felonies varies greatly depending on whether the offense is considered dangerous and also the defendant's criminal history. For a first-time offender convicted of a non-dangerous Class 2 felony, the presumptive sentence in prison is generally 5 years, with a sentencing range from 3 to 12.5 years. Dangerous offenses carry a higher presumptive sentence, a minimum of 7 years and a maximum of up to 35 years for offenders with multiple priors. Prior felony convictions significantly increase the length of sentences, potentially reaching up to 35 years for defendants with multiple prior felonies. Unlike Class 1 felonies, Class 2 felonies have a statute of limitations of 7 years for prosecuting the offense. Because of their gravity, prosecutors tend to take Class 2 felony cases very seriously, especially those involved named victims or public attention, often seeking prison sentence even in plea deals. Conviction results in serious consequences, including the loss of civil rights, firearm restrictions, barriers to employment, and, for sex offenses, mandatory registration as a sex offender. Defending against a Class 2 felony requires early and aggressive legal intervention, involving strategies that challenge every element of the prosecution's case and protecting the defendant's rights throughout the process. Then there's Class 3 felonies. Let's say you get into a heated argument with someone. They end up with a serious injury, and suddenly the cops are saying that you assaulted a police officer because the jerk at the bar was an off-duty cop. That's a Class 3 felony, and the prison range starts at 2 years, even if you've never been in trouble before. Class 3 felonies in Arizona are high stakes, high consequence offenses. These aren't fringe cases. They often involve violence, weapons, or deeply alarming conduct. And they carry prison terms of, like I said, a minimum of 2 years and up to 8.75 years for someone with no prior felony record. Now, let me give you a few examples. Aggravated assault, not just a bar fight, but a serious injury, use of a deadly weapon, or assaulting someone in a protected role like a police officer or a healthcare worker counts as a Class 3 felony. Then there's also second-degree burglary, which is not a misunderstanding about being in the wrong place at the wrong time, but unlawfully entering a non-residential structure with criminal intent. Then there's child abuse, some types of fraud, and certain domestic violence charges as well can all fall into this category of Class 3 felonies, especially when there's a repeat pattern, physical harm, or emotional trauma involved. Class 3 is where the system starts to apply serious pressure. Prosecutors often push for prison, not probation. Judges see these cases as having victims who've been seriously impacted. And if aggravating factors are present, like a prior felony, a weapon, or a vulnerable victim, the sentencing range goes up fast. So if you're charged with a Class 3 felony, you're not in a gray area. You're squarely in the territory where a conviction can change the course of your life permanently. It takes an experienced defense attorney to cut through the emotion, challenge the narrative, and make sure your side of the story is heard. Then there's Class 4 felonies. These are the mid-level charges that can catch people off guard, especially those with a clean record, suddenly swept up into something much bigger than they imagined. Class 4 includes crimes like simple possession of narcotics, possession of a firearm by a prohibited possessor, theft of items valued between $3,000 and $4,000. And while these might sound moderate on paper, a Class 4 felony conviction can truly disrupt a person's life, from the loss of civil rights to employment setbacks. And here's the wrinkle. Prosecutors sometimes infer intent to sell in drug cases from circumstantial evidence, like baggies, cash, or a scale, which can push charges to more serious felonies. Suddenly, what started as simple possession can land someone in far deeper trouble. Class 4 felonies typically carry 1 to 3.75 years in prison for a first offense, and up to 15 years for those with priors. Non-dangerous offenses might qualify for probation, while dangerous offenses involving weapons or violence always mean prison time, even for first-time offenders. That's why smart strategy matters. A strong legal defense can be the difference between prison, probation, or having the charge reduced to a misdemeanor, depending on the facts of the case. Then we have Class 5 felonies. And Class 5 felonies are near the lower end of the felony scale, but are far from minor offenses. A conviction carries serious consequences, including possible prison time, substantial fines, loss of civil rights, and a permanent criminal record unless sealed. Common Class 5 felonies include credit card fraud or theft involving amounts between $1,000 and $3,000, forgery or possession of forgery devices, drug possession offenses, particularly for substances like methamphetamine or fentanyl, interfering with judicial proceedings such as violating protective orders, certain domestic violence offenses, theft of property valued between $2,000 and $3,000, aggravated assault, certain kinds at least, criminal damage, child abuse, and public sexual indecency to a minor. The sentencing varies. For non-dangerous first-time offenses, prison ranges from 6 months up to 2.5 years, and probation is often possible. With priors, sentences can go up to 7.5 years. Dangerous offenses require mandatory prison time, usually between 2 and 4 years or more. Class 5 convictions impact nearly every area of life, from employment to housing to licensing. With skilled defense, some cases may result in charge reductions, diversion, or reclassification, but nothing is automatic. It takes proactive, strategic legal work. Then we get to Class 6 felonies, and this is the lowest level of felony in Arizona. But don't let the number fool you. A Class 6 felony is still a felony, with all the same baggage: criminal record, potential prison time, and a lifetime of background check problems. We often see Class 6 charges in cases like simple drug possession, theft of items worth $1,000 to $2,000, criminal damage, certain misconduct involving weapons, or misdemeanor conduct that's been bumped up because of a prior victim class or aggravators. Here's where things get more complex. Arizona allows some Class 6 felonies to be filed as undesignated offenses. What this means is that at the time of conviction, it is a felony, but the court can later reduce it to a misdemeanor if conditions are met. Think of it as a second chance built into the law, but it has to be earned. If the plea or court allows it, a person may plead guilty to an undesignated Class 6 felony, and after successful probation and compliance, the judge has the discretion to redesignate it as a Class 1 misdemeanor. And that can change a whole lot, makes a big difference. First of all, it would lead to the restoration of civil rights much sooner. It removes the felony label. It helps with jobs and housing. It opens the doors to licensing and opportunities, but there is, of course, a catch. The court doesn't have to redesignate it, and if you violate probation or pick up new charges, that felony sticks. Prosecutors do not offer undesignated status in every case. It takes advocacy, creative, strategic, and persistent advocacy. The bottom line is that Class 6 charges sit at a critical tipping point in Arizona law. Handled correctly, they can be the start of a comeback story, but handled poorly, they can create a lifetime of unnecessary hardship. A lot of people think that if they just do the time, it's over, and that's just not the case. Here's what a felony conviction can do. You lose your civil rights, including the right to vote, serve on a jury, or enlist in the military. You lose your gun rights, often permanently. You may be barred from holding a commercial driver's license, working in government jobs, or getting licensed in skilled trades. And even if you avoid prison, that felony record follows you everywhere. This isn't about fear, it's about understanding the stakes. So what should you do? If you or someone you care about is facing a felony charge, don't wait. Talk to an experienced criminal defense attorney, someone who knows how the Arizona system works, someone who's not afraid to challenge weak evidence, someone who can push for dismissals, reductions, diversions, or alternative sentencing when the facts allow. And in some cases, even after conviction, it may be possible to seal your records under Arizona's updated laws, but only if you have the right guidance. If you're dealing with a felony charge, or even just think you might be, I invite you to reach out. I've dedicated my career to defending people accused of serious crimes, and I've helped them defend against those serious accusations, and I help them reclaim their future. So subscribe if you want to stay informed about your rights in Arizona, like this video if you found it helpful, drop a comment below if there's a topic you want me to cover in a future video, and remember, I'm Chorny. You have rights. They matter. Protect them. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.